follows an extract from my book Letters from the Broom Cupboard, available from Amazon. Dear reader, I think that perhaps the only drawback to playing the piano is that it can, at times, make for quite a lonely existence. Every instrumentalist has to spend long hours practicing alone, but most other instrument groups eventually get together for some sort of performance. For string, woodwind and brass players, there are all sorts of orchestras, wind bands and brass bands to join in with. Pianists can join in with orchestras and quartets, but only if they have reached an exceptionally high standard. There is always the possibility of playing duets in a cosy twosome, if you're lucky enough to have a friend of about the same standard of ability. Other than that, you're on your own. In fact, that's the very point of the piano. You can be your own soloist and at the same time provide your own accompaniment. Thankfully, I also play flute, and so I have had the best of both worlds. You just can't beat playing in an orchestra or a wind band. I still harbour the ambition to learn to play the soprano saxophone and play in a swing band. The fingering is very similar to flute fingering, so maybe I'll give it a go one day. At school, I was one of those awkward children that never managed to fit in. I hated pop music, and when asked if I was going to the school disco, I could only look confused because I simply couldn't understand the question. Were they joking? Did anybody ever really go to these things? I just couldn't comprehend it. It wasn't until I started to play the flute and got to a standard where I could join the school orchestra that I finally found a world in which I belonged. I wasn't one of the best, but it was a world that I could understand. My life reached something of a pinnacle when I made it to the prestigious position of first flute in the school orchestra, just in time for a concert. We were playing Haydn's and Surprise Symphony, and at that time I had something of a crush on the percussionist. I was especially excited for the concert as the first flute sat on the edge of the stage right next to the timpani, and therefore the timpani player. If you know the symphony at all, you'll know that there are many little musical jokes throughout the piece, and most famous of all is a sudden loud chord at the end of an otherwise quiet theme. The jolting crash is provided by the timps, which is why the Germans often refer to the piece as the symphony mit dem Paukenschlag, with the kettle drum stroke. It's easy to see that percussion plays an important role in the piece. The seating around the music stands was a little cramped, school orchestras probably being better attended all those years ago, and, as we sat waiting for the lights to go up, I whispered to my fellow first floaties to ask if she could see the music well enough. Would she like me to shove over a bit? Keen to be accommodating to my colleagues' comfort, I gently shuffled my seat a little to the right. Just as the lights went up and the conductor lifted the baton, I fell off the edge of the staging, still perfectly seated on my chair, headlong into the timps and into the arms of the handsome percussionist. Well, they weren't expecting that, were they? Don't ask me how, but apparently not many people noticed outside of the orchestra. Maybe it was a combination of a trick of the changing lights and the sound of the audience's anticipatory applause as the conductor walked to take her place in front of the orchestra. But I managed to re-establish myself on the stage without overall detection. I picked up a bar or two late and the show went on. I think that scuppered any hope of a chance I had with the handsome percussionist though. Perhaps it was also at that point that I decided to concentrate on piano studies. It appears that Haydn has a lot to answer for in the direction that my life has taken. Gratefully yours. For the full collection of Letters from the Broom Cupboard, available from Amazon in paperback or as an ebook, follow the links in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.